Can't stop. Won't stop. Till killer cops are in cell blocks. Can't stop.
The following newly released video portrays an incident of assault and violence at the hands of police. Viewer discretion is advised.
I suggest you back the fuck up.
No,
This is Baltimore City Police Officer Jorge Bernardes Ruiz. In a newly released video shot in 2016, Ruiz is seen with his knee on the back of an unknown man with a gun pointed at the man's head. His message was a clear one. Concerned onlookers, adhere to my dictates or else. Here, we can hear Ruiz saying to Baltimore residents,
I suggest you back the fuck up.
It is documented that Baltimore police officer Jorge Bernardes Ruiz is a repeat violent offender, even without access to all complaints against Ruiz, undisclosed by BPD Internal Affairs records. 6 cases involving Ruiz are known. This video will briefly highlight 6 total cases beginning in July of 2013. Case 1, Abdul Salam, July 1st, 2013. Here Salam is seen victoriously smiling in celebration after the jury found Ruiz and 2 other cops liable for brutality against him. However, because the trial was civil, not criminal, Ruiz was not fired and he did not go to jail.
Police profiled me. They followed me in the back of my house, harassing me. Police proceeded to violently and hostilely approach my van with me and my son in it. As I announced, this was my home, guns drawn. Once they reached my vehicle, they violently pulled me out, ramshacked my vehicle with my 3-year-old son strapped in his car seat, threw me against the gate, slammed me repeatedly. Picked me up by my feet, and while I'm upside down, they proceeded to drop me on my head, hog tie me, and immediately when I fell on my head, Ruiz, in a wrestling type of action, and kind of hit his knee against my neck. I was arrested. I had no idea what I was being arrested for. My son is scarred to this day. He remembers the incident as it happened yesterday. When he talks about it, he always refers to Daddy being on the floor with police yesterday.
Case 2, Darrell Harris, profiled, as seen in this video, July 17th, 2013.
Yeah, I said, what's wrong with it?
Improper way with it.
There's no such thing as an improper way.
You gonna tell me my job, bro?
I know the law.
Are you gonna tell me the law?
I know the law.
You gonna tell me the law?
I know the law. What's the problem? You giving me a ticket? You need my license registration?
Yeah, let me get it up.
Profile, y'all use the seatbelt as a reason. Profile.
Do me a favor, take out your keys.
Yeah, you can record me. For what? Nah. I don't feel safe right now. Do you want me to step out the car? Do you want me to step out the car? I'll step out the car. Call the police, man. What do you call a supervisor? I'm about to do shit. This is getting uploaded to the internet right now. Yeah?
And we are 2 law-abiding citizens that we are getting targeted, and I don't know why.
Just 24 hours later, Bernardes Ruiz played a leading role in the police killing of unarmed Tyrone West. Case number 3, the murder of Tyrone West, July 18th, 2013.
My brother Tyrone West was brutally murdered on July the 18th, 2013.
In both of these cases, when you look at the pleadings and the harsh language of these officers that have been quoted to me by reliable witnesses, the N-word.
And Killer Ruiz and Killer Chapman and the rest of those 11 to 15 killers, including David Lewis, took something from my family that they could never give us again. And that was my brother Tyrone West, one unarmed man who was brutally murdered, beat to death in broad daylight.
Mic check, mic check. This is West Wednesday, number 457. We are fighting for justice for all victims of police violence. Mic check, mic check.
Mic check.
Mic
So
check.
mic check.
Mic check.
So I want to welcome everybody tonight to our very special West Wednesday. Like my brother Ben said, this is West Wednesday, 457 weeks continuously. We've been fighting for accountability, not just for my big brother Tyrone West, but literally for all the victims of police brutality and murder. And it's just sad. And so tonight we have a special. If you saw the video, you know that we play every week with the first officer, Killer Ruiz, that was a part of the elite gun trace task force. And I know you guys have been tuning in to the HBO special show. You know, we own this city. So it's real touching to me just because my brother was actually murdered, literally, by those corrupt officers from that force, from that task force. And that's Ruiz, who is highly posted. And that's why we're get you guys to watch it. And the sad part, he's still working to this day. He's a sergeant. And meanwhile, my brother is dead. He's gone. He's no longer here. His daughter just had a birthday. His grandbabies just had birthdays. It's just sad. And my brother heavenly birthday is coming up. Like, it's really sad. And then to know that before my brother, if you saw the last victim that we just played, Darrell Harris, 24 hours before my brother was murdered, you saw Darrell Harris. You saw Ruiz go up to that car, literally telling him, you know, all this stuff, and just being the animal that he is. And thank God that Darrell had someone in his vehicle to say, hey, we got this thing going on live right now. They knew something wasn't right. You know, but it was unfortunately my brother didn't have no one to do that because the lady that was in the car, I don't even know if the gun trace task force sent her to set my brother up. Who knows? Like, all of it, none of it makes no sense to me. It's just a lot of questions, you know, that me and my family are forever just pretty much trying to search for answers. And as we know, as you guys know, we're launching We Demand Answers campaign from Marilyn Mosby because we deserve answers. No family should not have a state prosecutor that will just sit by and not even say, I'm going to indict these killer cops or not. All we want is answers. We're not at you to bend the rules. We're not trying to harass you. We're not trying to do anything. We've been out here going on 9 years, and I know it didn't happen on your tenure, but there's no statutation limit on murder. So we just demand answers. And tonight we also have my sister and brothers that pretty much, this is a powerful book, and if you guys don't have it, I urge everyone to go out and get it now. And that's why the police should be trained by Black people. This is a real awesome, amazing book. I haven't really gotten into it yet, but the little bit that I did read, I'm like, oh my God, like I'm literally on the end of my seat. Can't wait to finish reading this because it's so real. This is our reality that we live every day. And the fact that one particular brother in this book is Abdul Salam, the one that you saw in the video. And the saddest part, 2 weeks prior to my brother getting murdered, Abdul Salam was with his baby son. And guess who was at his vehicle saying he didn't have his seatbelt on as he's yanking him out? Killer Ruiz from the Gun Trace Task Force. We own this city. They have that mentality. We own this city. And there's nothing you can do. And if we think that those 8 or 9 officers that got arrested, we think it end like that, all that corruption, something must be wrong with you. Something must be wrong with me. And I mean, like, it didn't stop there because those officers felt so pretty much like that. I mean, this was going on for decades. This is decades of dirt and crud. It didn't just start literally overnight. And it's really sad. So, but no further ado, first I feel compelled by the power and the spirit. I want to bring on, and then I had my brother, Dr. Ted on here. And I remember, like, literally, he volunteered when they were cutting my tires just because I was speaking out peacefully. This brother volunteered to actually come and spend the night in my car. He's like, sis, it's irritating me to the point I want to spend the night inside of your vehicle to see who this coward is or cowards that are cutting your cutting your tires and like vandalizing my vehicle, doing all type of crazy stuff. Like, you can't make this stuff up. It's just so sad. But none of that has stopped me in the whole entire 9 years of fighting for accountability. Nothing will. Like, because we are in crucial times right now. The Darnell Rochester, an 18-year-old baby that was supposed to have been graduating from high school, wasn't doing anything wrong, literally driving, and he was ambushed. And literally the same thing by the same exact Northeast Police District. Northeast Police District is a really deadly, dangerous unit. Okay, it's just sad, but because if think about it, if in 2013 there were 17 killers that was able to murder one unarmed man and nobody get held accountable, what type of message is that? And for our commissioner to literally say in a statement, don't look at that film and think that's all of us. Something's wrong with this man. Because the fact that I met with him, and I met with my brother Tad was right there with me, Abdul was right there with me. We're not making this up. And he was even saying all the dirt and crap he saw in there. And he was going to do this and that. And it was a big dog and pony show. That's exactly why I call it that. But no further ado, I'm going to first bring on my brother Abdul Salam, and then he can introduce all of our other wonderful, beautiful guests that is in this book. My sister, Natasha, oh my God, like, she really touched my heart because I was at a book reading, and she came and she blessed my life with this. This is a priceless gift. So I urge everybody, please go out and get this book. So I'm gonna do a mic check. I'm gonna bring my brother Abdul Salam on, and he was literally victim number one that we know of. It could have been victims before Abdul, but the fact that Abdul put his life on the line and said, you know what, I don't want to see a Tyrone West get murdered, not even knowing my brother was going to get murdered. You know, not even knowing my brother was going to be the next victim. He took the time out to file complaint after complaint. He did so much of stuff. And he was in his driveway in that same area, literally not even 300 feet from where my brother was murdered at. But he was a resident. The only difference from Tyrone West, no one knew who Tyrone West was. He was an unarmed man, an unarmed black man that no one knew. You know, no one knew him at all. All they know was a black man driving a green Mercedes-Benz. But thank God Abdul Salam pretty much was a resident that was in his community. And unfortunately, he had his 3-year-old baby son in the back of the vehicle, watching his father almost get beat inches away from his life, literally pleading for his life. Had it not been for an elderly woman to come out, put her body on the line and say, don't you hit him again. And then the fact that, and I don't want to tell a story for him, but it makes me so mad. It hurts me so much because all they had to do was put this animal on death duty. Death duty would have literally saved my life, my brother's life, and my life, because a big part of me died on July the 18th, 2013. Literally. So it could have saved my family's life. It could have saved Darrell from getting attacked. Just put him and Chapman on death duty while they do a little dog and pony show investigation and see where Abdul, and they didn't do anything. And then it continued. And the fact that we learned, and through West Wednesday was born off the blood of my brother. And through West Wednesday, that's how we met Abdul, and that's how we met Darrell Harris. We keep meeting victims. That's how I met Adina, my sister Adina. Literally, like, I'm tired of meeting victims, but meanwhile, they're still receiving a big paycheck. So no accountability whatsoever. So I'm gonna do a mic check, and I'm gonna bring my brother Abdul on. Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Peace, family. Thank you for that, Tawanda. Hey, good evening. Good evening. I want to, of course, reiterate everything my sister, our sister, Tawanda, has spoke of and has so eloquently spoke of throughout the years. And I want to thank Dr. Harris for this platform, her book to start this conversation and platform. And I believe her book and the idea of her book is such a beautiful marriage coming out of Baltimore, coming out of our movement from right here. And the reason I say that is because one of the narratives, and I believe that's what this book speaks about most importantly, right? Is narrative and controlling a narrative and redefining it. And I believe that with the narrative of police brutality has too often been misspoken and even misdefined, right? Because one word that I often like to put back into the conversation is that we're speaking of police fatality and not brutality. And we understand language is very powerful. So when we use the language brutality, that does not speak to our family members that we lost, because when or that I should say that actually move the conversation, right? Because the people that are spoken of on such as Tyrone West and individuals that have actually, I don't want to say sacrificed, that have actually sacrificed their lives, are the individuals that we remember, right? Or that actually move the conversation politically and things of that sort. But there's so many more individuals that are circumstances of the actual brutality. So I just like to say ashe for our individual, our ancestors, our family members that have this conversation has actually cost their life. That's important. That's important for us to understand. Next, I like for us to understand that when asked about how to train individuals in the police department, because I understand this is a systematic racism that is taking place. This is a systematic racist creation that is manifesting itself in our communities. I don't myself believe that just training will actually change that. So again, the marriage of profession, right? Of this coming from an individual, Dr. Pratt, who is a social scientist and a social scientist and a human developmental scientist as well, right? So just being able to incorporate individuals in the police department that changes mindset is important, right? Individuals or the police departments historically have been filled, created, and handed down generationally through a slave masters to what now we would call a militarized mindset, right? So when we know that that's a generational mindset, I don't believe that, this is just my opinion, I don't believe that going in and giving 8-hour trainings will actually change that mindset. So we need individuals like a Dr. Pratt Harris, right? And other individuals that come from more of a social dynamic, right? From that are looking to bring individuals together, that are looking to work on mental health issues, instead of coming in and militarizing communities and captivating and kidnapping or so-called arresting, right? Individuals from Black and brown communities. We need individuals that understand our communities, individuals that are not just from our communities and come back, but that are from our communities, have never left our communities, and that are part of enriching our communities, right? So again, Dr. Pratt, I appreciate you bringing this conversation to life. I appreciate you not only creating this book, because I know how much effort it took you, but actually taking on the efforts, from a social science perspective of doing your research and homework. I appreciate you, sister. And also being in the face of the actual departments and individuals that need this training and need this book to say, these are the ideas, these are the narratives of the individuals that are affected by these militarized mindsets, by these militarized gangs, by these militarized police units. And I'll just end it with this, because Tawanda, you spoke of we run this city. And again, I hope that individuals that are a part of this project are organic and of our community to uplift us in the right way. Because I believe we can be left in the dust again, as we were with The Wire, as we were with so many other projects where they prey on the weak of Baltimore, where they prey on the negative ills of Baltimore, and we're left with just that. So I hope the individuals that bring this attention to Baltimore have goodwill, and to change the narrative, to change and connect with individuals that are actually doing the work, such as Tawanda, Ted, Dr. Harris, and so many more. I appreciate you all, and I appreciate all the work that you all do, and thank you for this time to speak. Amen.
Amen. So anybody, y'all can feel free to just dive in, and thank you, my brother, for sharing that, because you just mean the world to me. Because every time I look at you, it just bring my brother back in my space and face. So I just want to thank you. Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Well, if I may, and things right first, to all of the queens that's on here, and my brother, you king, and that's how I see our people, as kings and queens. The problem is that too many people are seeing us and not seeing the kings in us, not seeing the queens in us. And I think that we have too many what I call culture vultures and poverty pimps who have been taking advantage of our communities. And so it's unfortunate when the same people who are supposed to protect and serve ends up being the same person that is looked at in the same arena as the person that may rob you, or the person that may break into your house, or the person that may assault you. And he made mention, to even the series that's coming now. But I'm hoping that it doesn't just expose how much that Baltimore has been fractured and damaged. I'm hoping that it also puts in place of how we're going to fix what has become entertainment,
yes,
for the world. My godfather, Little Melvin, has made mention about the stories of The Wire and different things, but also how they took our stories and made, I guess, a good amount of money off of the story with The Wire. But after that, what was put in place to fix what was going on? And so, to be in a situation where our children don't know of Officer Friendly. I was telling someone just on the other day, I said that I was down in the projects and I was talking with some people, but I saw some children that were kind of playing, let's say, cops and robbers, but they didn't want to be the cop.
Powerful.
They were arguing. No, you know, no, I'm not going to be that. I'm not going to. And they were looking at him as the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
And so with that type of so you see how internally things are happening as far as with the situation. That's why I think that this book, I think the timing of this book is so necessary. And I'm speaking also from a person who actually came from the streets, but also I came from my grandfather was of Deacons for Defense who fought against the Klan in Louisiana. My father organized with Dr. King at Southern and Grambling University. My mother worked for Medgar Evers. The same summer he was assassinated. My uncle was a Black Panther with Bunchy Carter, and my cousin helped start the new Black Panther Party with Dr. Khalid Muhammad. And so I kind of had a chance to be in the middle and see both sides, from even the church, to the streets, to the freedom fighting. And with that being said, I think that the timing right now of this book is just impeccable, only because when I did the diamond training with the police academy, I actually had the opportunity to bring a number of actual gang members into the police academy, and they wasn't supposed to ask them their name. They wasn't supposed to ask them where they were from, what set they were from. But what they were there for is to share why they do not like police. And as they began to share their experiences with these cadets about having people break in their house, raid their house, tear the house up, and then they had the wrong address and they didn't apologize. As they told stories of somebody telling their grandmother to shut the F up and go in the house. As they told stories of a young man who was from Northwestern waiting for his little sister at Coldstream or at his Cold Spring station, and they pulled up, got out, searched him, asked him what is he? He said, "I'm waiting for my little sister." They told him, "Get the F off of my bus stop." They took his phone, slammed it down to the ground, and then they spit in his face. And so for me, when I even asked the officers, out of about 35, when I did the training, out of about 35, I said, how many people have grown up in Baltimore with the Black experience? And out of about 35, it was only about 5, sometimes 6. The majority had been outsourced. And the problem with that is if you come into a culture and you don't know the culture, then you may actually take on the culture in a wrong way. So what they did is take on that us against them mentality to the same community they were supposed to be a part of. And that was part of the problem, I guess, with that. And so with that, being said, all of these different things, they took on a culture of having like the movie Training Day. You know what I'm saying? Where you actually, how can you be a good officer if your trainer is not a good officer? And my godfather, Little Melvin, used to say that the moment that an officer is breaking the law, he is no longer an officer. And that's how, I actually saw things. So to me, I think just the timing of what's going on with the social justice, what's going on with the injustice around the country. I'm actually going down to Augusta, Georgia, and there with the family, and they just had their son who was shot 38 times 2 weeks ago. And actually his last post on Facebook was, "They are trying to kill me." This was his last post on Facebook, and so, and then I'll be going there to New York. And then, I just got off the phone with George Floyd's uncle, and so, this is the time. And so if people are going to do something, I would think this would be the time to mobilize and to let's try to see how we can come together and unify so that so our voice can be loud. It shouldn't just be you, Tawanda, yelling. It shouldn't just be us that's here on this panel, and this platform, screaming at the top of our voice. We have to have a unified voice saying never again.
Amen.
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 I'm not sure if Dr. Jones Eversley was able to speak, but please.
Not yet. Okay, sure.
Please,
First of
thank
all,
you.
you can call me Dr. Sharon. It doesn't matter, Sharon. It doesn't matter. But I'm really honored and blessed to be a part of this. I was born, raised, and public school educated all in West Baltimore. And so as you were talking even about Little Melvin and all of those things, Poplar Grove, Bellamont, Elamont, North Avenue, 21215, 21216.
All right.
That's where I was. But I'm also blessed to be a social epidemiologist. There aren't many Black epidemiologists and there aren't many female. One of the things that my chapter, which is the third chapter, really focuses on is due process. And due process is something that we just think is light, but it's not. It's very heavy. Even when we think about the insurrectionists, Section 3 is going to put them in, people can't run for office and things like that. Is a very powerful one that came after the Reconstruction. But I want us for a second to realize what each of my brothers have eloquently already said. This isn't new. The fact that the very first crime in reference to stealing on people from Africa and coming to Port Covington in Virginia in 1619, it was an actual crime. The Portuguese had just come from Africa with slaves that they stole. And when they got to Virginia, somebody hijacked them and stole those slaves. So those are the first slaves here. So it was criminal even then, not just dehumanizing in reference to kidnapping, but it was an actual crime. And so we've been viewed as property and been viewed as being dehumanized. But there's a powerful threat, particularly in reference to African-American males. And it is a concern that I have that when we look at the ages of 18 and 24, since the civil rights movement, they've had the highest degree of homicide and suicide, the highest death rates of all ages of African Americans. It doesn't matter who is president, purple, green, or purple. It doesn't matter. It's extremely high. And so when we're talking about this is deeper than just the brutality and the criminology and behaviors of police officers, but we're talking about procreation. We're talking about generations being stopped. And so in the chapter 3, we're really focusing on empowering the citizens with skills of social epidemiology and legal epidemiology. And let me, before anybody start tripping, I didn't even know what it was, to be quite honest with you. It took me a while to pronounce it. But a Dr. Chung, I was in Park Heights working, because West Baltimore is very dear to my heart. And he said, you know what, you make a good epidemiologist. And I come from a mama who you don't never sound dumb or look dumb. I'm like, well, that's interesting. I'll look more into that. But when I began to look into it, I found that it was fascinating, the science of it. Personally, to me, my goal is to make sure every Black family has at least 3 or 4 epidemiologists in their household. I study social epidemiology, but legal epidemiology, there's forensic epidemiology, there is criminal epidemiology, economic, political. We need to be so aware of this science because the numbers don't lie. People lie about numbers, but the numbers are not going to lie. And so what I'm saying is, let's, in this particular chapter, chapter 3, using social epidemiology, which looks at not just deaths, but look at the reason for the deaths, the behavior, discrimination, poverty, looking at that, taking that to change policy. But what legal epidemiology does is what we did during the civil rights movement. That's why we have the voter rights bill that they're trying to dismantle and destroy. That's why we have during the Reconstruction, the 13th Amendment, the 14th Amendment, the 15th Amendment. This is when we make it law. And what happens is the citizens themselves say, what is existing within our culture that causes us harm, that could kill us, that could make us sick or disable us? When you look at those numbers, then you look at the policy and the infrastructure, and that becomes a risk. That's a violation of your due process, and you sue. Black communities, particularly in the South, as it relates to environmental justice, have done amazing work around this. When we look at health disparities, these are issues, even when we talk about just the distribution of the COVID vaccine. These are issues that need to go to court. This needs to hold people accountable. This is when they have to swear under oath. So often people come with evidence against us, but very rarely is it switched that we have the evidence and we come not just with emotion, but with receipts, with proof. And we use the very system that may in many ways discriminate us, but we use it. That's what Thurgood Marshall, he was from West Baltimore. That's what he did when we talk about the success of Brown versus the Board of Education and all of those particular components. So I'm really saying for us, we have to realize that we have power. We are kings and queens, but we have been so beaten down that sometimes you just get tired. But we right now, every one of us within my listening voice, are the prayers of our ancestors. Why we can't give up is because we can't accept that it is the norm that for African American males in the United States, that is the 6th leading cause of death. And Black children are 6 times more likely to be killed by police. Okay. When I gave the other one, the 6th leading cause of death of African American males, young African American males in the United States is being killed by police. I didn't say diabetes. I didn't say cancer. I didn't say by a gang member, by killed by police. And that our children are 6 times more likely than white children to be shot and killed by police. The reality is we're going to have to work together. It's who's listening to who. And sometimes we can't necessarily trust anyone other than ourselves, to be quite honest with you. We can't trust institutions. People will sell you out easily. We have to write about it. That's my calling. I write about it. I write about human trafficking. I write about everything. I write about anything that has, there's nothing that I do that doesn't have Black in it. And it doesn't focus on West Baltimore. And that's just the truth. But everybody has to hold the banner up, not just us, right? Everyone, because we're dying too young. This is inhumane. I mean, and on one of the articles that we wrote, we talked about that this isn't something that I even trust with the United States. I trust with the United Nations, because this is inhumane. This is not, when we look at, if there was any other type of, I would say, epidemic, pandemic in reference to murder and death and homicide and the grief and pain that follows that, it's among our people. We have more complex grief, and yet we're only 12.1% of the population. So when we talk about training, we do have to come together at the table, but we don't come angry. We come with receipts. We come with a plan. When this training, we're talking about bringing skills to us. Legal epidemiologists. I want forensic epidemiologists. So when they're going to court, you don't have to really hire a lawyer, because you need to have receipts for yourself and understanding the science, understanding the research, looking at the maps, looking particularly when we talked about, for example, in our chapter, we're talking about looking at history of violence among the police officers. How many times, because they can go based on their union from West Virginia here, knock somebody up, be unsatisfactory there, it doesn't matter. We need that type of intel because it tells a story of a lived experience so we can prevent the death of others. So I'm going to pause there. I get a little excited, but just really blessed to be a part of this. Very proud of you, Tawana, and just really blessed to be a part of this. And again, we need the tools, the receipts to take it, the changes, because we can have a narrative, but if we don't have laws and we don't have policies and we don't have lawsuits, and it's not about money, it's about systemic change, structural change that protects our life, our wealth, which is health and well-being. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Queen, and I'm so glad you brought up everything you say. You're so powerful, amazing. Like, oh my God, like, and I love the fact that you said coming with receipts, and that's all I've been bringing was receipts of everything. Literally, like to the point when you talk about, you can say, oh, my brother was brutally murdered all day long, but if you don't have those receipts to show. It's just unfortunately like when they come and they can't, they come canvas a whole neighborhood and they take cell phone video footage of my brother being executed. I had to be the one. So now I have to show my receipts, even though I don't have that video, but I have so many receipts. Just so like, and all I'm just waiting for is just that fair opportunity to present my receipts to the point that we had the medical examiner's office to actually lie and say my brother died from a bad heart and dehydration. Not that he was beat to death in broad daylight by 17 armed, okay, armed men and women. So if you think about all the damage and trauma that other victims went through, like for instance, Anthony Anderson, he had a ruptured spleen, broken ribs, all that. And there was only 3 officers on him. You're talking about 17 with open fists, batons, like to the point that the medical examiner's office, they elected not to take any autopsy photos. Period. I never heard of such. But guess who was the sister that came in after they hit my brother by 5 days and got my goddamn receipts? Me. But see the point, like you saying, it's not about the income, it's about the outcome. That's why I elected to take the civil proceedings, because I didn't want to jeopardize my brother's children's monetary supplement. It's just sad, but you're not going to craft my language. You're not going to do that. I'm going to fight like hell for my niece and nephew, for my brother, grandkids, and all that. And we changed the law. We got the gag order law started, with the help of the ACLU, and many coalitions, Jews Justice, Not Without Black Women, just all of us, Runners for Justice, the West Coalition, the ACLU, and at the time, Brandon Scott, who was the city council president, and Shannon Sneed, who was the the councilwoman or whatever. But we all push for this piece of legislation, and that's what it's about, trying to change these brutal laws. So I definitely feel you on the receipts. So say that. Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Good evening, everyone. I just want to say thank you to Wanda for inviting me to speak today. And without a doubt, when I come to talk about this book, it's going to be at least 3 to 4 to 10 to 20 people coming, because this book includes more than 30 contributors. It's a 20 chapter volume. It comes with more than 30 contributors from varying backgrounds. The 3 beautiful people you also brought in are contributors to this book. Chapter 19 includes Ted Sutton, Dr. Sutton, and Abdul Salam, and as Dr. Jones Eversley said, Dr. Sharon. She's in chapter 3. And one of the things I've learned as a scholar, and when I use the word scholar, it can sound a little kind of disconnected from like the ground, like the real world. But what I learned as a scholar is that you're learning as a scholar. And the people who are teaching us aren't the people who've necessarily gone the traditional scholarship route. So this conversation is quite like what this book is about. This book is about having the people who have the experience, no matter where that comes from. It can be classroom experience, it can be lived life experience, it can be spiritual experience, it could be like a mental experience, it could be any type of experiences that we can come with to be the voice and the people who share the news of whatever it is, to explain the details of the people that are most impacted by something. In this case, we're talking about those who are in the United States most impacted by policing. Because Black people in the United States are disproportionately represented in the criminal justice system. Black people are disparately impacted by issues related to brutality. Black people are disparately impacted by our system. And as my daughter said, and she's one of the contributors to the book, she says the only reason she's going to be able to talk about Black people is because she's Black. she's not going to be able to talk about it from another person's perspective because she is not living their perspective. Just like me as a professor, I can't necessarily talk to the experience of a student who's in my class because they are my student in my class. I don't live their experience. I don't know the details of their experience. I can only speak to my experience being their instructor, and I have to check myself in order to really apply or understand that I can only speak from my lens. And that's what this book is about. So when you guys, everyone was speaking, every single person was speaking, watching the video, it's a learning opportunity for me. And quite frankly, undoubtedly, it's a learning opportunity for those who are able to join in and listen in. No matter what our backgrounds, our experiences are, our tragedies are, we're always in a learning mode. It is like so refreshing and so inspiring to constantly be in a situation where we're learning. And that's what this is truly all about. So one of the things I want to say about this book is that this is coming to everybody from decades worth of experiences, decades worth of work. This wasn't a fly-by-night situation. You're talking, decades upon decades upon decades of experiences from people who were themselves law enforcement professionals, people who actually already trained law enforcement professionals, people who have unfortunately buried their loved ones because of police misconduct, brutality, people who have buried their loved ones because of community violence, people who actually lived and breathed this experience, but that feeling of helplessness that we all experience. Like I've had the experience of colleagues sharing with me clips of all sorts of things, clips of people, in the streets of Baltimore, Chicago, anywhere regarding like community violence, and there's just a sharing. Like, look at what's happening in this city, or in another city when with George Floyd, the imagery of this man his life being taken away from him, sharing it. But you know what that does to the psyche? That leaves you like sick to constantly have to see those images. Those are real people. And what happens is, this is a fact. There's no doubt about this. What's happening is we are sharing it to have like moments of like connection and conversation about these tragedies.
Mic check. Mic check. I think we may have lost Natasha. She had stated before that sometimes her phone overheats. So if
but I think she was bringing up a really good point in reference to that trauma, because I think that is something that we do need to heal within even as we fight. Because as someone who's lost a husband, someone who lost a child, it's hard. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. Other people will get over it, but we don't. As you were talking about your family members, you don't. But we also need healing. Our faith may be strong, but the reality is the level of racism that we have.
Okay, I'm not sure if you can hear me still. But
yeah. Well, you stopped when you were talking about the trauma that we face when we look at those images. No, you're good now. But you
all right, Can you hear me?
Talk about. We can. We're here. Can you hear us? Can you hear us, Natasha?
We can hear you, Natasha. Can you hear us?
I don't think she can hear us.
Can you all hear me? Okay,
great.
Okay, so you can hear me. For some reason, I think you were on mute, but I couldn't hear you. But someone called me. I don't know how to cut my phone off to tell the phone to stop calling. But what I was saying was that ultimately we are feeling a sense of hopelessness or helplessness. So we're sharing because you want to, but for me, constantly sharing and not moving beyond the share is not helping any of us. So in 2015, January of 2015 or so, several of us who were actually contributors to this book were asked to write in a journal, a social work journal, about the death of the police shooting of unarmed Black men. And so we're writing this article, and it's about 7 to 8 of us writing this article. And in the midst of us writing this article, Freddie Gray is killed in Baltimore City. So the agenda of the social work journal was to address the police shooting of unarmed Black men. And of course we had to change the narrative, because the death of Black men in police custody isn't always related to a police shooting, right? So we had to change it to the experiences from scholars in Baltimore who are associated with the city of Baltimore as relates to the death of unarmed Black men in general, right? What we gave each other in that moment, in that 6 months of getting this article out, was comfort. We were actually having moments of it was like therapeutic environment when we were given the space to write. One of my colleagues, Dr. Michael Sinclair, is a social work professor at Morgan State University. He's also contributed to this book. He says this, and I say it consistently: writing is fighting. Yes. Sometimes people get it twisted, and I'm just speaking my language, that being a scholar or an academic means you're less than connected or less than understanding or less than experienced. But the truth of the matter is Dr. Jones Eversley said, Dr. Ted Sutton acknowledges, Abdul Salam acknowledges, we are scholars, but we also fighters. You just come at the fight in different ways, right?
That's right.
And another thing, when we talk about fighting for us doesn't mean violence. Fighting for us doesn't mean we want to see someone hurt or harmed. Fighting for us means that we want due process. Fighting for us is that we want an opportunity to connect in a way that's going to improve the life chances for all of us. In chapter 1 of this book, I write specifically about the need for the police to be trained by Black people. Why? Well, one of the things I acknowledge as a criminologist, a professor who trains young people who ultimately themselves become police officers. A lot of my students become police officers, is we train them on the history of policing from all the vantage points, not the limited discussion that I got as a criminology student myself. The acknowledgement of the realities of slave patrols and that type of thing, and giving them the whole story, right? And also talking about what it takes to be a police officer, meaning there is something that's going to happen within your psyche when you are engaging as a law enforcement professional. Number one, the safety of the job, how you're being socialized to be engaged in communities, what you learn in the academy, and what actually happens on the streets, those types of things. So we talk about the needs of persons to get support in terms of dealing with their psyche. That's a big deal. In that chapter, there's also discussion about law enforcement being equipped with the capacity to engage with community members who themselves are psychologically impacted by a whole host of things, including trauma that may be related to policing, including trauma that may be related to community violence. So all those things are discussed in that chapter. And what's happening in this book, and what's happening is it is introduced is a desperate call, a desperate attempt to say, we need to get this right. I don't want to hear my daughters, who've already started talking about it, expressing fear and concerns about what happens on their campuses regarding policing. They're in college and dealing with the things that they shouldn't even be dealing with as college students, or anyone should be dealing with in any community, right? In another chapter, I talk about guns as hazards to Black life. And there's this narrative, and I think all of us can kind of connect with this idea that for some reason, if someone has a gun illegally, that makes the use of that weapon more impactful or more negatively impactful than someone who owns a gun legally. What I talk about in that chapter is guns are hazards to Black life, no matter who has the weapon, and no matter if it's obtained legally or illegally, because we are disparately impacted by gun violence, Black people, people of color. And in that way, there's a discussion about training or engaging with law enforcement to recognize that a gun, the presentation of gun or the notion of gun violence in our communities and families related to suicides. I talk about that being the number one cause of gun deaths is suicide. Training them to understand how guns impact our existence in terms of the disparate impact on that violence on our bodies. The other piece is a very powerful chapter,
and I'm going to just raise his name as I acknowledge this chapter, by a brother named Elijah Parker. I co-wrote this chapter with Elijah Parker, who is currently detained. I met him in 2014, a young man who shares that he was wrongfully convicted. He went to prison as a 17-year-old baby, and he spent 10 years in prison. And he consistently acknowledges that he didn't commit this crime. And then because of what happens when you are in this system, you've been incapacitated, you've been institutionalized, you have ebbs and flows regarding how you're going to succeed in communities, and then you end up back in prison. So right now he's there, he's on his way out in a matter of weeks. We're going to pray for this young brother. And ultimately, that chapter talks about police involvement in the wrongful conviction of Black people. And there's a whole history behind that. Right now, we're living in the age called, and I call it this, the innocence movement. So there's this kind of idea that, people are getting their records expunged, or getting their names kind of cleaned up regarding their, the wrongful conviction that did happen, being made known and them getting released, or their, criminal record being cleaned up. But the fact of the matter is, there are far more people who have a wrongful conviction than those that we see who are getting, the public acknowledgement of a wrongful charge, then later a conviction. So in that chapter, we kind of hone in on that, training law enforcement professionals on how police officers can impact the wrongful conviction of Black people. And it's a historic phenomenon. Ultimately, this book for all of us is dedicated to our family members, is dedicated to our loved ones. During this 5 years of this particular book coming out, we have all lost people that we hold dear, hold true to our hearts. And we've kind of struggled to manage life, manage even putting these words together to write this book. But we actually honor them, because those that we've lost recognize that we're still going to do the work, and they're kind of pushing us on to continue to do this work. It's also dedicated to the first Black person who was first Black person and beyond up until the present day who was unarmed and Black, and his or her life was taken, and we don't know their names in many cases, like the slave patrol scenario that's discussed in this book. So I'm just giving honor to Wanda Jones. When I tell you, you are teaching us about things that we can't even imagine, like the commitment to this effort, raising your brother's name every single chance you get. That story, that idea needs to be shared with everybody. And one of the things we talk about is sharing that with persons who are going to become police officers, or persons who are actually police officers already and doing in-service training. Why? Because it needs to be recognized that our loved ones matter to us. They are not a number. They're not a hashtag. They're actually we love our loved ones. We honor our loved ones. We weep and we cry about our loved ones. And if we can prevent the death of our loved ones and beyond, that's part of the purpose that we're serving. And I just want to thank you for just being that voice to inspire the masses to continue to push forward and to continue to honor your brother's name. That is just so powerful. It is and it's so very important. Just want to thank you just for doing that. And also giving us moments to recognize that while we may feel helpless or hopeless, there's more that we can do. There's a different way we can, engage or connect or address the very things that we're talking about. Because it is about us saving lives and trying to improve upon life conditions for everybody. That's ultimately what we all want. So thank you. And I just want to also acknowledge Dr. Sutton. My phone, got hot and cut off earlier. I'm sure he shared his contributions related to his past life and how he's also done this type of training. And, we go, and these relationships that we forged with this particular book is organic. This is not, people like being put together, for like, how you do like a team, we're going to be a team. No, it was a destined moment. I met him through Mr. Melvin Williams, his godfather. And let me tell you how that king trained me early on in my career. And I'm just so thankful for that. And Dr. Jones Eversley, I'm just going to say this for those who won't necessarily know this story beyond this moment. We know that Tawanda Jones is a spiritual woman. She's God-fearing. She gives all praises and honor to our Lord and Savior on a consistent basis. Anyone who knows or follows you knows that. And I'm here to tell you that Dr. Jones Eversley is also that person. I'm talking about every moment of all of our journeys. She is always speaking the word. So that chapter 3 comes with that conviction behind all of her efforts beyond a scholarly work. And again, folks will box scholars into a certain space, but we go beyond, that particular space. And of course, Mr. Salam, we've known each other in a past life, and it's so amazing that these full circle moments keep happening. And again, he's inspiring. He's actually spoken to our students at Morgan and, connecting them to, what this is all about and reminding all of us what we should be consistently doing in the classroom and beyond. So I just want to say thank you to everyone. And, I'm sure there are some questions, but I'm here. My phone is nice and cool. It won't be cutting off anymore.
No, I just want to thank you guys. Like, y'all are so amazing. And I wanted to tell Dr. Sharon, I'm so sorry about your husband and your child and like your beautiful spirit. You can just definitely tell you're truly connected to God. Like, I love it. Like, definitely got to get your personal cell phone number as well. Like, because like in these times, we definitely need to uplift each other and just remember, because no matter what, you got to stay focused on God's word. And the way we're in a spiritual warfare right now, literally, like you can feel like you're on top of the world one day, and then in the very second, in the blink of an eye, it feel like the whole world is on top of you. And the only thing that gets me through all that is my faith and strong believing in God. And I don't know if I mentioned it, but when my brother was killed, it was God that let me know. It wasn't, we didn't get that phone call that nobody dressed to get. It was the relationship that I had with my brother, and most importantly, my connection to the higher power, God. Thank you, Jesus. Like, literally, like when my brother was being killed, he let me feel pain in my body for 10 to 15 minutes, pressure on my neck, my back. I fell to the floor. You can't make this up. I'm crying, telling my family members, oh my God, something bad happened to Tyrone. And then we saw it on the news. We saw his dead body on the gurney. He didn't die the same as the way they want to paint the narrative. They let him suffer and die out. They made sure that he didn't survive. The same thing that they did to Darnell Rochester. They let this young baby die out when he could have been saved or even worked upon, treated like a human being. They let our loved ones just die out, and then they say they later died at the hospital when they're dead on that scene. They just didn't want to put that black sheet over across my brother to have the uproar. The community probably wanting to jump on them for what they witnessed, what they're forever traumatized with. Let's be crystal clear. So this is a lot, but I want to check in with the question. I'm going to check in with our brother Marcellus, because I see the board lit up on my end, and that's just one part. So I know we got a lot of comments, questions coming through, but you guys are truly blessing to me right now. Like, oh my God, I'm like, yes. So Marcellus, mic check. I want to check in. Mic check.
Just real quick.
Mic check.
Oh, go ahead, Ted, brother. Ted,
No, I was just going to say I do apologize if my phone goes out for a second. Unfortunately, just like I said, I did a workshop in Bermuda with some youth in the detention center, and my phone is not fully charged up. And but I tell you, I'm giving it every bit of juice and energy that I possibly can. So if it cuts out for a second, it's no disrespect in any way. Love y'all.
Okay. All right, and before I go in, because I know that your phone might go out, I just want to give you a big shout out, because a lot of people may or may not know this, but during the uprising and things like that, while my brother was boots on the ground, literally out there for Freddie Gray, he literally he went into a burning house, y'all. This is the type of brother I know. This is the king I know. He went into a burning house, y'all, and saved loved ones, literally saved
this queen life, a student, you know, they graduated, and you know, and that just touched my heart, like literally. He could have just walked. Who God knows what would have happened at that moment if Dr. Ted would have said, you know what, I'm not a firefighter. Or like the police officers always say, I fear for my life. And would have let this sister burn. We don't know where he pulled family members out of a blazing home. So I definitely wanted to give him a big shout out for that. So yeah. Mic check. So I'm gonna go in and check in with my brother Marcellus. Mic check.
Mic check. Hillary says mic check. AC Britt says mic check. Sean Garrity says gotta run back to work. Glad I could join you for a minute today, Tawanda. AC Britt says much love and respect to Abdul Salam. Bruce says good evening all. AC Britt says 100%. It's not a training issue. Just the fact that David Simon is involved. He was responsible for the homicide, life on the street, The Wire, and now this, We Own the City. He has historically glorified bad police and policing. Hillary says it makes sense that children are seeing police as the bad guys. Police behavior has created a culture of violence in Baltimore. Thank you all for your message. AC Britt says yes. Love to all of the kings and queens on here. Angela says mic check. AC Britt says my son is doing a project for his criminal justice class, and it overlapped maps of Baltimore and the most polluted areas, oil refineries, trash, incinerator, etc., overlap with the black butterfly. Miriam O'Neill says, truly appreciate all y'all do till we win. The fight continues. Angela says, hashtag we want answers. AC Britt says, pen is mightier than the sword, and knowledge is power. I feel like I'm attending a free college course. Mic check.
Amen. Mic check. Awesome. I'm just like I said, I'm on it. Like I'm really on it. Like, and I'm just urging everybody. How can they get this book? Can you tell everybody how can they get this book right now? We need to know this.
So it's available. I think the least expensive price I've seen is on Routledge's website, and the link was available or should be available in the chat. And it's also available on Amazon and Barnes and Nobles. And if you Google the title and put it in parentheses and quotes, put it in quotes, it should take you directly to whoever is selling it. I know Google Play has it electronically. You can purchase it. They'll give you some preview portions of the book, not the entire book. You can't get the whole book on Google Play, but you can get access it that way. And it will be available in the libraries soon. So you can check it out and read it that way. And one of our other goals is to have it available as an audio book as well. I know for me, that's how I get through a lot of books. It may feel a little like technical language is used, but I think audio will help you connect to it, and it's not as technical. But again, it's a book that can be used in the classroom, in a police academy, and police training, and for just general reading as well. I mean, there's a lot of insight when I read the chapters over again, and I have to read all the chapters and organize them and do all the work with all the contributors. I'm learning something every time. It's like a learning experience. In fact, I think this book is a model for a lot of our other entities. So like, education in terms of our schoolhouses, training by folks who are impacted by our systems like public schools, or medical professionals, training by persons who have the different experiences in terms of medical professions. It's a model for that. And the contributors are experts in their own right. They don't have to have, all these letters behind their names, but they definitely come with all kinds of insight that you can't, there's no price tag you can put on it, actually.
Yeah, this is amazing. Like, and I really hope like people that are like want to become into law enforcement officers and all that type of stuff, they really need to read this, because this, like, the way you summed it up, it has everything in it. Like, y'all didn't miss a beat with nothing, and that's the part that is like real touching to me. And I don't know if you guys know about, because you talked about like people being falsely accused. It's a brother that literally was the first person shot during the uprising, and that was Keith Davis Jr. Literally, and he is going for his sixth trial coming up. And this is something that our state's attorney will not let go. And the fact that he done had six trials, all these mistrials, like he was, I urge you guys just to look up Keith Davis Jr. And this is a young man, so it broke my heart when you were telling us about like a 17-year-old. This man had been sitting in prison for 6 years away from his beautiful wife, Kelly Davis, you know, that fights and advocates, away from his four beautiful children, his family. Like, and it's just crazy. Like, literally, he hear somebody got a gun and he take off running. Like any black brother, sister, anybody that's in the hood, here somebody got a gun, you're not going to stand there and ask questions. You're going to take off. And unfortunately, police took off with him and they shot him. Like they tried to pretty much, they shot him. They shot at him over 30 something times. Literally 3 bullets hit him. And literally the way he's been mistreated, I always say that if this system cannot kill you, they will bury you alive. And this is one of those things. This is one of those things where when I say trial after trial, and I mean, I urge you guys, because he have another trial coming up, please get involved with the trial. So come, if you can, come in person, because you will see the tomfoolery, the dog and pony show. Like, people get on the line, get on, you know, and get sworn into a courtroom and just straight lie. Like, they want us to believe that they can eyeball something. We sort of believe they're like, it's just crazy. Like you, Hollywood could not make this stuff up. And I'm just afraid, and I'm praying that they don't do, because I mean, they done made up jailhouse snitches, and like at the last minute, you know that when you're, you know, fighting the case, you're supposed to present all your evidence. They done literally waited till the 12th hour to present somebody that never met Keith Davis Jr. to lie and say, oh, he confessed to this murder. They, when I say they go to all levels, and meanwhile, this is not entertainment. This is a real person's life. And the saddest part that really irks me and bothers me too, because on the other side of this, that's heartbreaking, there is a security guard named Kevin Jones that was murdered going to work. A young man going to work, they got murdered, and you know they got all type of camera footage, but unfortunately nothing. And they're trying to stick this murder on an innocent man. That's just how the level of dirt and crud is real. You cannot make it up, and it's so scary for me, and it breaks my heart every time, because you think about it's not just one family. You got beautiful Keith Davis Jr. family as well as Kevin Jones family, who deserves accountability, right? Because I know that when my cousin got murdered literally last year on inauguration day, January the 20th, and the saddest part, the craziest part, I'm on the news on the 19th, like around 11:30 at night, literally before a strike of midnight. I'm there, and they're putting out, the ACLU did a big report on, guess what, the gun trace task force. And not only the gun trace task force, they were talking about that, but they were highlighting all the corruption that was going on in our city right here, right? And they highlighted Ruiz, who attacked Abdul Salam and all. And I'm on the news, and I'm thinking, oh, we get closer and closer to accountability. And my cousin Tavon Anderson, that was on the front line going to Morgan State University, where one of the officers, the one at the end that was 340-pound David Lewis, sat on my brother's neck. Y'all saw the life of George Floyd get murdered, and he's crying for his dead mama. My brother was crying for a dead victim. He was yelling, Trayvon Martin, help me. This is my brother leaving this world. He's screaming another victim name after he done been pepper sprayed, kicked, tased, pulled by his dreadlocks. I mean, hit with baton, open fist, and you let a 340-pound man sit on his dying neck until he was dead, till he was no longer breathing, no longer moving. You know, so, but the fact that all the stuff came down about these corrupt officers, and I knew about the six victims that was pretty much assaulted and didn't, you know, that survived through, besides my brother. But I learned that they had on Ruiz another whole 18 people complaints. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. People that took the time, that knew that they could get, you know, harassed by the police, turning in their statements. And what about the people that didn't complain? But we had 18 other people. That is so mind-blowing to me. That is so mind-blowing. And I was just like, oh, we're getting closer to the truth. And then that night, mysteriously, my cousin Tavon Anderson was murdered on Lafayette Avenue for no reason, and my family still don't know anything. The system wants us to be quiet as if Tavon Anderson's life didn't matter. And I'm just saying, like, I don't know if, like I always tell everybody, I'm starting at the pig's house first. I'm starting with the Baltimore City Police Department because I know that's who I'm fighting, and I know that makes everybody in my family targets, including myself. And the fact that my cousin wasn't a young man that was in the street, he's just getting off work, he's taking his daughter, and he gets mysteriously murdered, and it's a whole year, and we still don't have any answers. It's ridiculous, utterly ridiculous. And it's just sad, but I'll be, me and my family be hopefully coming out soon with more details of my cousin Tavon Anderson. But the crud is so real. You can't make this stuff up. And this is the nightmare that we are forced to live in every day. So before I do a mic check, because we always do a sad homicide list as well as a police brutality list. And last week, I think we went off, oh my God, Uncle Bill, he's not here tonight because I think his wife is in the hospital. She had a surgery procedure done, so he's there caring for her. So I don't know if he either NQ or not, but nevertheless, last week we had over 30 something names of police brutality victims that were murdered, literally. So that's why, and this is something that we shared. It's not just in Baltimore City, but it's happening, literally all over in different states and whatnot. So we highlight those victims as well as, unfortunately, the victims that are being murdered right here in our own city. Like, this is so traumatized. So when you talk about trauma, just not even knowing, like, and then I gotta go teach through all this, bless through the babies, be with the babies and, love on them. But meanwhile, my mind, like, I have to wear so many hats because they don't even know what's going on in my mind. And I'm praying that nobody gets hurt because we're at a time that bullets are just flying. It's like the purge out here. And all they keep on talking about is this number every year, a 300 plus. And we noticed that all the numbers went up as soon as the uprising happened. And that's when all the numbers went. It, like, you used to have like 100 murders, which is still awful. But to go from 100 literally to 300 in those past 7 years is utterly ridiculous. And nobody sees the connection that, all of this stuff is related. And that's why I really feel some type of way when people say, oh, you guys, y'all don't fight for, community violence. We fight for everybody. Because at the end of the day, guess what, baby? I call it the highway of hell. It's all connected. That's the way the system wants us to believe. Police brutalities over here, community violence, homelessness, the way they're teaching our babies in the school, all this stuff is connected. And it's affecting mainly our brown and black folks. It's mainly affecting us. But at the end of the day, it affects anybody that's human. Anybody that has a real heart and compassion. You don't have to be in my skin color to feel my pain, because guess what? It's us today, but it could be y'all the same. Because when they kill us all off, who you think they coming for next? Who you think they coming for next? And for me, literally, and I know I'm scrambling, but it's just so much going on. Like, it's real. Like, so when I think about post-traumatic stress, I think about police trauma, like just dealing with all this on your mind, not knowing. And it's so sad. I get more afraid when one of my loved ones, one of my children, nieces or nephews or family members call me and say, hey, because they always call me when they get pulled over by the police. Hey, Mom, or hey, Auntie, I'm getting pulled over. I'm like, oh my God, because at the end of the day, it's like playing Russian roulette. You don't know, depending on this officer, right? Training, how they feel. If they're having a bad day, they could take their life in a blink of an eye, and nothing get done. And that's what I be telling everybody. The difference between community violence is if people stand up and come out and say, hey, so-and-so did this, guess what? You'll never see them again, right? They'll get the whole process, the due process of the law. But when cops kill us, they get paid vacation. They get immunity. They get all this stuff that we're not granted as human beings. And the only thing, and they get off with, I fear for my life. And then I think about Ahmaud Arbery. And I don't know if you guys know, I just saw that documentary. There's a documentary out there now that's out there now. And they came on like last week, I saw it, or the week before last. But I did not know that those killers went unanswered for 77 days. I'm thinking it was 30. 30 was bad. When I learned the whole raw truth, 77 days. And it wasn't until you get to see our execution on. And then the crazy part about it, they kept on saying, and then that's what's scary, because the media has the power to make innocent people look guilty and guilty people look innocent. And the fact that they try to make it seem like Ahmaud Arbery was going around robbing the neighborhood or trying to break in the house. The fact that what I learned, and which I knew that wasn't true because I always do my own research, but for me to learn that this young man was actually jogging through a nice, beautiful, gated community, right? And he saw a house that other people had saw that had the doors off. Like, so imagine going through a beautiful neighborhood that you might be in mind saying, hey, I don't live that far away from here. I live, literally around the corner. He might have been, I might want to come to this community or, is this house up? So he went and looked inside of the house. Before he went in there, they show a video of white teenagers going in there. They wasn't a suspect. They didn't even, they showed a white couple going in there, but because Ahmaud was black, right? Let's be crystal clear. Because he was African American, that is why he was ambushed and murdered. And that is just so sad. Therefore, and I'm gonna leave it at this, and I promise I'm gonna go check in, and y'all can say whatever y'all want to say. But the part that was real disturbing to me was when we had one of the attorneys that to me should be disbarred for the lack of being ignorant. And I feel so proud of Ahmaud Arbery's mom, who I got to meet, Miss Wanda. And I'm so sorry I had to meet her under trauma and pain associated with her son being murdered. But for her to be so enduring of taking pain and not being able to snap, because I don't know what I would have did in the courtroom where you got an attorney, right, that's defending the killer that murdered your loved one. And literally, she had the nerve to say Ahmaud wasn't a victim. He was a dirty black man running through a neighborhood with his no socks with his dirty legs. She said that in a courtroom. I was like, you got, and this was raw footage. This wasn't nothing that they made up. They were showing raw footage of a white lady, a white animal, a white devil saying about Ahmaud Arbery wasn't no victim. Don't make him think he was a victim. He was a dirty man with dirty legs with no socks. She said this. I'm like, I hope she burned in hell with gasoline drawers. God forgive me, but moving right on. So I don't know if you ladies want to add on before we go to the comments and questions, and then we're gonna go to our sad list because I respect everybody's time. So mic check.
Mic check. I'm gonna just say this. I've met Kelly Davis, and she is another resilient woman. When you both were featured in a local magazine, can't think of the name of it, I showed it to my daughters, just to remind them of what their responsibility is. At anything, this is what we're teaching our students, and we teach our family members, those who are coming behind us, that we are to be the voice. We are to stand up, and we are to support, love on, advocate for our loved ones. Simple advocacy can be missing in our families, but it doesn't have to be. Again, what you show us is that it matters. It matters. There are some movements that are being made on your platform because of advocacy, right? So that's so important. The other thing I want to say is that when it comes to police involvement in wrongful convictions, and when you talked about like community violence, what really has happened, and we've seen this as we've studied this and we've observed it and we've lived it, is that because Black lives have not mattered on the large scale, if a Black person is wrongfully convicted, and if they're speaking up saying I did not do this, it is systemically normal to discount the truth regarding what an individual has experienced. That's why in this chapter, there's discussion from a historic lens on the wrongful conviction of Black people, including through and beyond the Scottsboro Boys and the Central Park Five. And there are like 20 other cases that are highlighted in this chapter, which speaks to a almost like it's a trend. I don't like the word trend because it's not popular, but it's pretty consistent in our system that Black people are disparately wrongfully convicted. In fact, when you look at wrongful convictions overall, there's discussion about police misconduct, and this chapter talks about police misconduct and why people are wrongfully convicted. There's also prosecutorial misconduct, There's also inadequate defense. But it begins with a police officer, oftentimes, who makes the move to take someone into custody, and it kind of goes beyond that space, oftentimes, because again, prosecution can come without police officer involvement, but that is real. And so when we talk about community violence, and we all have experienced our loved ones, people we love, admire, respect, we down with them, and all of a sudden they say, you guys are advocating against police brutality, but you're not talking about community violence. And all this is what I suggest, as I just say a prayer for those people, because the truth is, the possibility exists that they have not, and God willing, they will never experience the pain of losing a loved one to violence, and that they have likely not been engaged in a way to address community violence themselves. Hence, it just rolls off their tongue that persons who are advocating against police brutality aren't addressing community violence. If they actually listen to themselves speaking, they would not say that, because it doesn't actually make any sense. It's not like people of color, Black people in communities are ignoring it. First of all, we're traumatized by it.
Yes.
We are utterly traumatized by violence. We are traumatized by it, right? So we are spiritually led people. So the only response I can get when I even hear it is I just say a prayer, because I'm praying that they never experience the death of a loved one due to violence, because that death is all deaths, all the losses that we've experienced are we're managing to get through giving those. But the death of a loved one due to violence, just the imagery alone, you cannot in a moment think that any of us are okay with that, including the community who is fighting to address violence, all violence. So I know Dr. Jones Eversley wants to kind of say something. And again, thank you, Tawanda, for having us.
Thank you. Head Up was blessed with an opportunity about a year ago to do a book review for Angela Ball's book, You Can't Stop the Revolution. Really kind of focused on, Michael Robinson and his death. And one of the things that I thought was so incredible about her research is she really spoke about the mobilization of the community that had it. There were so many people who had been killed, but his death really marked a real change. And so for me, it's been an honor to be here. So often in our positions, all we do is research and read and teach and write and serve. And so it's really good to be connected, but it's also, I don't think it's by coincidence at all that we're talking about the importance of the community voice, because when people know that people care, people are watching. We all have to watch and hold people accountable. And we want to, and I hope that this book won't just be limited, but that will train other individuals as well, community leaders, right? Young people, not just about their rights and their constitutional responsibility that any institution in this country is receiving. They have to humanize and treat people fairly and justly. And so just empowering people with how to always have receipts, not just with your cell phone, but other things that you can request by law to receive and in a timely fashion. And so often, sometimes we know that that is a costly fee. Legal fees are costly, at over a point. And one of the things that we need to do is empower people so they know how to retrieve this information, to be able to tell the truth, their lived experience. It's not a lie. And when you have the receipts and being able to articulate it, being able to write it and present it, and being able to speak up and advocate for that nobody else has to experience what we've experienced in dealing with the violence and dealing with injustice. And if we don't, who is? going to do it. So just really honored. I know that I do have to kind of step off and go, um, but just really blessed. And I know we'll be in contact. And whether we can be of assistance, I'm sure. I'm thinking Tasha's either the tow truck came or her car got hot again. But if we could be of assistance, please definitely let us know. It really, I'm just very humbled and I'm very thankful to God for this opportunity. And from somebody from West Baltimore, in fact, uh, Freddie Gray Sr. went to the same elementary school I went to, 148 Rosedale. You know, we always know numbers. It's now it's right. It's a apartment complex, but it used to be 148. But we all went to the same school together, and I went to Calvinton. So you know that's all in West Baltimore as well. But it's really a pleasure to and a blessing to have been here. So I'm going to have to go off, but please just know that we are definitely available. And if I can be of any assistance, please let me know. And you and your family are in my prayers. I'm glad you came back, Natasha, because I have to go, but I was just thanking her for this opportunity. You drive home safely. Make sure you text me when you get home, okay?
Thank you. And I'm actually still here. My tow truck is here though, but I'm still here.
That's what I
I'm
said. I
and
told
I'll
him
chime in and I'll text and all the good stuff. Thank you.
Yeah. But thank you for your commitment, because a lot of people would have said, okay, I got to go. But you just pulled over the side, called the towing people, and kept on with the getting through. So God bless all of you.
And thank
Bye-bye.
you. Thank you, Queen.
Right.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
This is amazing. Yeah, so.
Hey, Tawanda, may I say something about
Sure.
the community violence? So mostly I'm behind the scenes, but because I do a lot of help with the social media and I see a lot of the comments, one of the biggest criticisms that we get as the West Coalition is, when are y'all going to protest, the murders in Baltimore? And I'm going to speak to the white people in the audience, because I think most of the white people who tune into this are kind of on the same page. But if this is your first time at West Wednesday, or if this is just you tuning in, most of the criticisms that we get, where when are you guys going to protest the murders, come from white people. And the answer is, we protest and honor their murders every single week. But above and beyond that, I also want to highlight the event that I just saw you at, Rise Baltimore, where you stood alongside the Baltimore ceasefire and supported their movement as well. And you are always at their events. As a West Coalition, we come together to fight for justice for those who have been hurt by police violence. But you personally are always at the Baltimore ceasefire events. And the Baltimore ceasefire happens every quarter, 4 times a year. All those people who say, oh, when are you guys going to protest, the police, when are you guys going to protest the murders? I don't see y'all at ceasefire. I don't see y'all uplifting the names of people who have died every single week. I don't see y'all reaching out to those families and comforting them. White people have a responsibility. We created a lot of this mess. We perpetuated the redlining. We disenfranchised these cities. And we have a responsibility. All you got to do is show up. The events are already created. You don't have to do nothing but show your face. Change your profile picture on Facebook 4 times a year. That's all you got to do. It's already set up for you. Like, the minimal effort is required to get involved. And yet people are still complaining. When are y'all going to protest the murders? Every single week we protest these murders. And also the motherfucking police. Mic check.
Mic check. I love it. Thank you so much, Brother Ben. He said it best. So we always, like he said, I don't even have to add no more to that. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to check in with our brother Marcellus. But before I do, I want to thank everybody, because last week we had a beautiful queen on. She used to be a Black Panther. She pretty much born like she like helped deliver babies. She did so much. We had our dear beautiful Mama Candy on, and unfortunately, through all her trials and tribulations, she wound up losing her eyesight and things like that. And she's one that never asks for help. It's like even me in my times of need, y'all won't hear me ask for a dime. But nevertheless, she never asks for help. But she's just so humbling. But I want to thank everybody who donated. So now I got good news to share. We reached our goal. So thank you guys so much. We will be able to have her moved, even though she's not here in the city. And this is what we do as a collective coalition. Everything is not just about police brutality. It is about human life. It is about doing what's right. When we say live to love to live, I live by it. Like I live by it. So again, I just want to thank each and everybody that contribute their time, whether they spread the word or even said a prayer. And I'm also asking you guys to keep Uncle Bill's wife up. She pretty much Florence just went through a surgery and now she's recovering. So if you pray, let's pray for a speedy recovery. Let's pray for Uncle Bill's strength. If we don't pray, let's keep them in positive thoughts. So, and I want to give a big shout out to my sister Angela. And it's just so sad because we're coming up on the execution date of her brother, Timothy, who was gunned down in his home. Literally to this day, we're talking about going on a whole year later. They have no autopsy report. I know how hard and how devastated I was when it took them 154 days, felt like a whole entire year. I was so traumatized. I'm like, what are they hiding? And when they gave me those little flimsy papers, they could have kept those and they could have put it where the sun don't shine because it was a bunch of lies. But the fact that my sister and her family is still waiting for Timothy Flemings, poor Timothy Flemings, I can't even get it out. Like, it's just so sad. Like, why should they have to wait for an autopsy report? That's something that should have been given to them as soon as the autopsy was done. And the fact that nobody's talking or telling them anything, nobody's being transparent to this family. And the saddest part, even though we did a fundraiser to help get those babies out of that house, I am sad to be the bearer of bad news. Those poor babies aren't they're still in that house because we know that money doesn't just money is very helpful. Let's don't get it twisted. We thank everybody that donated and went above and beyond, but it's still a process with everything. I wish it would just pick up and go. I just wish it, and as soon as we got those funds, they could have immediately moved, but it's still a process. But meanwhile, those poor babies are still in that home. So let's just, if you pray, let's live that, let's lift my sister family up. Let's lift those babies up. And right now, let's just lift everybody up, like in prayer. And I want to send and wrap my arms around my co-teacher. She just lost her cousin yesterday, who was murdered. Literally, this shouldn't be the norm. Like, I don't know what is going on. I'm saying this, and it's making me say like, oh my God, like it's making me just like I can't even think straight. Like I said, I can't even function because every time I jump on Facebook to put my food up or a picture or whatever, or just to check on, I'm scared because every 3 posts there is rest in peace. My condolences goes out. Someone didn't make it. It is disgusting. This is not normal. This is not normal. And the fact, the way that they solve these crimes, and when soon as something hits Fells Point, oh, it's solved, or they'll start looking and you got the governor dishing out extra dollars, which he should, because every life matters. It shouldn't just be in Fells Point. It shouldn't just be in up the hill. What about down the hill? Okay, what about everywhere? What about every single day, every hour, someone, not just in Baltimore City, but I'm talking about our city right now because we're here. Someone is being murdered in cold blood. it seems like every 2 hours somebody's being murdered or gunned down, and traumatized. And meanwhile, our babies are supposed to grow up in this world. This is not normal. So I'm just going to go because I know I'm scrambling, but it's just a lot that's on my mind and on my heart. And I'm just praying for everybody. I am a prayer. And not only am I a prayer, I do by the word because I can pray all day, but if I don't put action behind my prayers, it's just in vain. And I'm praying and I'm trying to just search for answers that we can see a safe. All we want is just to be safe and have a peaceful life. That's it. Have a peaceful, enjoyable life. Every day is not perfect, but the day that you wake up and you're above ground is a beautiful day. So I'm just going to check in with our brother Marcellus, and then we're going to go into our sad list. And again, thank you. I know we ran over. We're over a lot right now, but we had a lot, and we had beautiful guests on tonight that brought all the flames. So just want to give a big shout out to them. Marcellus, it's all yours, my brother. Mic check.
Mic check. AC Britt says, free Keith Davis Jr. They also stopped investigating Kevin Jones' murder, so his family is being led to believe a false narrative. One of the things that needs to be done is to take the protection away the prosecutors have. They have immunity against being held accountable for wrongful convictions. It also shouldn't take 20 to 30 plus years to free an innocent man. Hillary says, live to love and love to live, Tawanda. Mic check.
Mic check. Thank you, my brother. And again, thank everybody for watching. And so we're just going to go into the sad list. Um, Again, my family goes out. I'm sorry, my family goes out. My heart goes out to the families and to just everybody that's traumatized by what's going on in our city right now. It's just so sad. So, just for time's sake, I know that we normally take like minutes, but because we're way along, but as we read the names tonight, please take a moment in your mind, in your space, wherever you are, to pray for the families. If not, just take the moment to lift them up in positive thoughts, positive vibes, or whatever you believe in. So I'm going to give a mic check, and we're going to start off with the sad list tonight. Mic check.
Mic check. Thank you, Twanda. So I've been asked to read both the lists this week. The first list that I usually read is the people who've died from homicide here in Baltimore in the past, whose names have been added to the homicide victim list between April 10th and April 16th. And so if you would just might check those back to me, just in honor of their memory and in as a way of trying to pull together the families and the community that they leave behind. So Anthony Clark, 21.
Anthony Clark, 21.
21. Benjamin Gardner, 47.
Benjamin Gardner,
47. Daniel Pitts, 52.
Daniel Pitts, 52.
52.
Akia Eggleston, 22, and her unborn son, Anubis Robertson.
Here, 22. Unborn son, I'm sorry, what was his name?
Anubis Robertson.
Anubis
Robertson.
Brittany Kaiser, 30.
Brittany Kaiser.
30.
Brittany Kaiser, 30.
Daniel Smith, 36.
Daniel Smith,
36.
Byron Troxler, 31.
Byron Troxler, 31.
Okay. Now the other list that I have is since the 20th of April These are people who have been killed by police. This is throughout the United States. And I'm just going to read off the names, the date, and the town. So on the 20th of April, killed by police, Jesus Javier Alamen.
Jesus Javier Alamen.
I'm sorry, and that was Bakersfield, California. Also on April 20th, an unknown man was shot in Washington, D.C. Ashe.
Ashe.
On April 20th, in Chisholm, Minnesota, 38-year-old man killed by police, Michael David Johnson.
Michael David Johnson.
On April 20th, in Yonkers, New York, a 28-year-old man killed by police, Bryant Jackson.
Bryant Jackson.
On April 21st, in Jacksonville, Florida, a 43-year-old man killed by police, Kevin Mahan. On April 21st, in Mott, North Dakota, an unarmed 34-year-old man killed by police, Jeffrey Glover.
Jeffrey Glover.
On April 22nd, in Edmonds, Washington, a man whose name and age we do not have, Ashe.
Ashe.
On April 23rd, in Washington, D.C., a 42-year-old woman killed by police, Erica Graham.
Graham.
On April 23rd, in Bel Air, Maryland, 53-year-old man killed by police, John Raymond Fauvert.
John Raymond Fauvert.
On April 24th, in Assumption Parish, Louisiana, a 26-year-old man driving a vehicle killed by police, Rhett Theodo.
Red Theodo.
On April 25th, in Cleveland, Texas, an unarmed man, unidentified by name, killed by police, Ashe.
Ashe.
On April 25th, in Amarillo, Texas, 26-year-old man killed by police, Ernesto Drew Pena.
Ernesto Drew Pena.
On April 25th, in Somerset County, Maryland, an unidentified man killed by police, Ashe.
Ashe.
On April 25th, in Aurora, Oregon, 27-year-old woman killed by police, Micaiah Clinton. On April 26th, in Roseville, Michigan, 53-year-old man killed by police, Frank Robles.
Frank Robles.
And lastly, on April 26th, in Evans, Colorado, an unknown person, Ashe.
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 Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Brian. I just had a question, and normally I don't do this, but when you had read the name Akil Eggleston. I remember it was a young lady killed like a few years ago that was pregnant, that was missing here in Baltimore. Is this the same person, or is this a different person with the same name and it's kind of same type of
Now,
scenario?
this I mentioned that these were people who've been added to the homicide list. She had been listed as missing, and this week she was added to the homicide list.
Oh my God! So yeah, so that might be her then. Is what
That
you're
is
saying?
that is to say,
Oh,
yeah.
that,
This
oh my
is yeah.
God!
The actual. She's been missing for 5 years, and they
Yeah, for 5 years. Oh my
found her
God!
body and charged her lover.
Oh my God! I did not. That happened today. Like when did this get announced?
The
Cause
I don't know when it was listed,
oh my
but
God!
earlier this week.
Oh my God! Well,
So
thank you so much for clearing it up and sharing it.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's. I said the lists that we work from are we're kind of at the
Yeah.
mercy of the people who compile these lists, and so they added this person this week, but I felt that it was important that we lift them up.
Oh my God. Okay. Thank you. I
Hmm.
appreciate that. And I
Thank you.
apologize because normally I don't never do that, but that was just like really traumatizing, guys. And the whole list of homicides and period, any life lost is traumatizing. So I'm real traumatized. My heart goes out. But I've been following that literally something that seemed 3 years that I can't even believe it's been 5 years because time has been flying. Like, oh my God, that's just so heartbreaking. And all these stories tonight. But I just want to give a big shout out to you guys for tuning on, standing by. But definitely want to give a shout out to our panelists tonight. I want to give a shout out to Professor Pratt. I'm sorry, Professor Natasha Pratt. You know, I definitely want to give a shout out to Dr. Sharon. They were all so intriguing. Definitely can't forget our kings, Dr. Ted, as well as our brother Abdul. And just thanking you guys for everything. Again, your time is important. This is a day that we never seen before. This is a day, unfortunately, that we will never ever see again. So just remember, live to love to live. I love you all. So thank you guys for tuning in. And let's keep all these prayers and just keep all these families and everybody in prayer or in thought, a positive thought. So just thank you guys. And if you can, please tune on just a little bit longer and continue on watching this video because again, we are saying that we demand answers. I know Marilyn Moses is going through her trials and tribulations and all that stuff that she's going through. And I pray for everybody, but I'm praying that she answers the call and let us know what she's going to do. My family deserves that. You know, Timothy Fleming's family deserves their autopsy report and answers as well. So we demand answers. So thank you guys. Live to love to live. We can't stop. We won't stop until killer cops are in cell blocks. Tune in for the video. Thank you.
And Mr. West begging for his life, and Mr. Salam begging for his child to be excluded and comforted from what was taking place. Not for himself, but for his 3-year-old child.
Case number 4, Adina Britt and family, September 10th, 2015.
My name is Adina Britt, and I wanted to submit a 30-second testimonial that Jorge Omar Bernardez Ruiz is one of the 11 terrorists that came into my house performing a home invasion in September 2015, terrorizing my entire family and even holding my 12-year-old son at gunpoint. He needs to be stopped.
Case number 5, unidentified arrestee, assaulted in 2016.
I suggest you back the fuck up.
No, why you
Again, this video did not surface until the summer of 2020. Case 6, Thomas McCullough, May 2016 and February 2017.
I heard my front door coming off the hinges like it exploded.
Thomas McCullough says it happened twice
In May 2016 and February 2017, Baltimore City Police burst through his green front door and raided his Pimlico home.
They said, police. They come up, shotguns, guns.
He says officers ransacked the place, looking for drugs, money, and weapons. He took pictures of the damage he says they left behind.
Tell us where the drugs are, the scales, the guns, and the large amounts of money.
Nothing was found. Now he's suing police, claiming officers, including a former member of the gun trace task force, frightened him, his wife, and father-in-law when the officers conducted what his suit calls an illegal search of his home. The owner of the house tells 11 News after the second raid, he had to replace the front door. McCullough and his attorney say they want Baltimore police held accountable.
There is a colossal breach of trust.
And McCullough tells us following both raids, no one was arrested or charged.
This all begs the question, when will Baltimore City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby see the prosecution of Bernardes Ruiz as warranted?
They were the stopping officers in these so-called jump-out cars, unmarked and so forth, that stopped both the West vehicle and the Salam vehicle without probable cause. And these officers are the ones that also were joined by others, but they are the ones who initiated the stops, pulled both men out of the vehicles, and commenced the vicious activity that was thrust upon them.
And the officer Ruiz that started this attack is still working and working with promotions. He is now sergeant. But the fact that this repeat violent offender had a history leading up to my brother. There was Darrell Harris, there was James Green, Joseph Green, Abdul Salam, and my sister Adina and her family. No one family deserves to be brutally murdered or brutalized by this repeat violent offender Ruiz. It is time we take action. The time is now.
Baltimore police officer Jorge Bernardes Ruiz is a repeat violent offender. Based on these accounts, in accordance with the law, we, the West Coalition, call for him to be fired, prosecuted, and incarcerated.
We're more than hashtags and body bags. We're more than being 6 feet in the dirt and pictures and buttons on t-shirts. Our lives matter.
For the safety of our city, the prevention of further harm, and the justice for these families, we see no other option.
And again, I'll say, the time is now.